Do you feel it? That connection, that certainty that you have found a soul who speaks the same language as yours. But there's a problem. The distance, the timing, the circumstances. It seems the universe presented you with the right person only to tell you that you can't have them. What if I told you that this isn't a punishment? What if, as Jung's deep psychology suggests, these impossible loves are not a mistake of fate, but rather the most precise and painful of your soul's missions? To understand this, imagine Helena's story. She lived her whole life with a subtle emptiness, a persistent feeling that something was missing. One day, in a rainy cafe, she met Marcos, and in that instant, everything clicked. A single conversation seemed to hold centuries of understanding. An accidental touch felt like an ancient memory. It was her soul shouting in a deafening silence, "Finally!" But Marcos was married, lived on another continent, or was about to leave on a mission of no return. The universe, with a poetic cruelty, seemed to have shown her paradise only to lock the gate in front of her. Have you ever felt like Helena, that feeling of having found your other half, only for reality to conspire to keep you apart? Most people classify these experiences as lost loves, bad luck from fate, and they spend the rest of their lives lamenting what could have been. But what if the real mistake was not understanding the hidden message behind that impossibility? Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. What Jung teaches us is that these impossible loves are in fact the most powerful mirrors of our soul. They don't come to stay, but to show us something about ourselves that we were ignoring. The person you feel is the right one isn't just a romantic interest, they are a living archetype, a projection of your own unconscious, the personification of a part of yourself that desperately needs to be seen and integrated. The key to deciphering the enigma of impossible love lies in one of Carl Jung's most profound concepts, the anima and the animus. Within the psyche of every man, Jung said, there is an inner feminine counterpart, his anima. She is the personification of all the feminine qualities he has not consciously integrated: his intuition, his creativity, his ability to connect. Similarly, within every woman there is a masculine counterpart, her animus, which personifies her unconscious masculine qualities, her logic, her courage, her assertiveness. The anima and animus are not mere ideas, they are living archetypes, centers of energy that long to be recognized. And when we don't recognize them within ourselves, the psyche, in its incessant search for wholeness, does something extraordinary. It projects them onto the external world. You don't fall in love with the real person. You fall in love with the projection of your own soul that you see in them. That woman who seems to have the creativity and spontaneity you lack, that's your anima beckoning to you. That man whose courage and determination you so admire, that's your animus calling to you. The connection seems so magical, so predestined, because it is, literally, a reunion with yourself. It is your soul recognizing a lost part of itself in the face of a stranger. That's why these impossible loves are so overwhelming and, often, so painful. The intensity of the attraction is the measure of your own need to become whole. The suffering of separation is the pain of your soul being divided once more. The impossibility of the relationship, the fact that the person is unattainable, often serves a dark psychological purpose. It keeps the projection pure. It prevents the messy, imperfect reality of a real relationship from contaminating the idealized image of your inner soulmate. You can worship the god or goddess from a distance without ever having to deal with their human aspects. But here is the liberating truth that Jung offers us. The mission was never to unite with the external person. The universe is not so cruel. The mission is to look into the mirror that person represents and have the courage to withdraw the projection. It is to look at all the qualities you adore in them, their strength, their freedom, their passion, their wisdom, and understand that these are the qualities your own soul is crying out for you to develop within yourself. Impossible love is not a tragic end, it is a map. It is an invitation to the journey of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. To recognize that the god or goddess you see in the other is, in fact, a reflection of your own soul is the hardest step. But how do you do this in practice? How do you withdraw such a powerful projection without breaking? How do you start the journey to find within yourself the qualities you were desperately seeking in another? The first step to withdrawing a projection is to transform obsession into observation. Instead of spending hours thinking about the person, dedicate time to thinking about the qualities of that person that fascinate you. Grab a journal and make a list. Is it their courage, their freedom, their creativity, their inner peace? Be specific. By cataloging these qualities, you begin to separate the real person from the archetype they carry. You are creating a map of the territory of your own soul that was lost. Once you have this list, you are ready for the second and most powerful step, dialogue. Jung called this technique active imagination. It's not a passive daydream, it's a conscious conversation with your inner world. Find a time and place where you won't be interrupted. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and invite this inner figure, your anima or your animus, who is currently wearing the face of your impossible love, to sit in front of you. Visualize them. Feel their presence. In the beginning, your rational mind will fight. It will say, "This is ridiculous." Ignore it. Remain in the space of mystery. When you feel the figure's presence, ask them the first question with humility and respect. What do you want from me? What are you trying to teach me through this pain, through this longing? And then, the hardest part. Quiet your own mind and listen. The answer may not come in clear words. It might come as a feeling, a sudden image, a memory. Your task is to be a receiver without judgment. Perhaps the figure shows you an image of yourself painting, reminding you of your abandoned creativity. Perhaps they transmit a feeling of courage, showing you where in your life you have been afraid to act. The message will always be a mirror, pointing not to what is missing in the other, but to what needs to be cultivated within you. The goal of this dialogue is to transform your relationship with this archetype. It ceases to be an external, unattainable object of desire and becomes an inner, accessible guide. The pain of the real person's absence begins to be replaced by the richness of this part of your soul's presence. You stop looking for your other half out there because you are busy dialoguing with them in here. The impossible love begins to fulfill its true mission. It stops being a source of suffering and becomes your most intimate mentor on the journey to wholeness. The dialogue with your inner soul has opened a door. You have begun to understand the message, but understanding by itself does not create change. Now that you know what qualities you need to develop, how do you bring them from the world of dreams into the world of reality? How do you embody your own ideal? The dialogue with your inner soul gave you the map. Your anima or animus revealed the qualities you need to cultivate. But understanding by itself doesn't change reality. A map doesn't transport you to your destination, it only shows you the way. The journey to embody your own ideal begins now, in the real world, with the smallest and most courageous step of all. The first step is to translate the archetype into action. Take the list of qualities you identified. If one of them is courage, ask yourself, what is the smallest and most manageable act of courage I can perform today? It's not about facing an army, it's about making that phone call you've been putting off, about voicing your honest opinion in that meeting, about inviting someone for coffee. If the quality is creativity, your action isn't to paint a masterpiece, it's to pick up a pencil and draw a single line. The secret is to start so small that your fear, your old guardian, barely notices. The mind doesn't change through grand revelations, but through small and consistent actions. And this leads us to the psychological principle of acting as if. We were taught that we first need to feel confident before we can act with confidence. But the truth is the opposite. You act with confidence, and the feeling of confidence follows. By embodying the body language, tone of voice, and decision patterns of the person you admire, you are sending a clear signal to your nervous system. You are retraining your brain, creating new neural pathways. At first, it will feel like a pretense. Your mind will scream that you are an imposter. This is where you must persist. Create small rituals of incarnation. If the quality you seek is the sovereignty of the inner king, your ritual might be to spend 5 minutes every morning standing in a posture of power, planning your day with intention. If the quality is the intuition of the priestess, your ritual might be 5 minutes of silent meditation. These rituals are anchors. They are the deliberate practice of your new self. And as you practice, something strange begins to happen. The obsessive energy you felt for the person of your impossible love begins to wane. The acute pain of longing starts to be replaced by a growing feeling of power and purpose. This can be confusing. It might feel like the magic is disappearing. But the magic isn't disappearing, you are integrating it. You no longer need to see it projected onto someone else because you are starting to find it within yourself. By practicing these small acts of incarnation, your dependence on the projection diminishes. But this process is not linear. There will be days when the old loneliness returns, when the image of that person comes back with overwhelming force. What happens when your new identity is confronted with the memory of your old obsession? How do you deal with the relapse? As you practice these small acts of incarnation, your dependence on the projection diminishes. But this process is not a straight line toward enlightenment. It's a spiral. And there will be moments when the spiral takes you back to familiar places of pain. There will be days when the old loneliness returns with an overwhelming force, when the memory of that person, the idealized image, comes back to haunt your mind. You might wake up in the middle of the night with your heart aching, questioning all your progress. In these moments, your mind, the old guardian, will whisper its most seductive lie. See, it was all for nothing. The pain is still here. You need that person. You'll never be happy without them. Relapse is not a sign that the process has failed. It is a necessary part of the process. It is a test. It is your psyche checking if your new structure is solid. Your task when the wave of longing returns is not to fight it or feel guilty about it. It is to observe it with compassion. It is to recognize the feeling and say to yourself, "Ah, here is the memory of my old pain. Here is the echo of my old projection. I feel it. I honor it. But I am no longer it." You treat the relapse not as a regression, but as a visit to a museum of your old self. You can look at the exhibits, remember what it was like to live there, but you don't have to move back into the museum. Each time you ride out one of these waves of longing without identifying with it, without acting from it, you are solidifying your new identity. You are proving to yourself at the deepest level that your peace and your worth no longer depend on an external source. The ultimate goal is not to never think of the person again. The goal is to be able to think of them without it unraveling you. It is to reach a point where their memory is no longer an open wound, but a golden scar, a reminder of the journey that led you back to yourself. And as the energy that was once trapped in the projection is fully integrated within you, something remarkable begins to happen. The inner emptiness that drove you to seek wholeness in others begins to fill. Your own company becomes richer, more interesting. And from this place of fullness, not need, you are finally ready to attract a completely different kind of love.
When the inner emptiness that drove you to seek wholeness in others begins to fill, you stop looking for love and you become love. Your own company becomes a sanctuary, not a waiting room. From this place of fullness and not of need, you are finally ready for the true encounter, not with a mirror, but with another whole soul. The love that blossoms from this state is not the possessive love of the ego, which says, "I need you to be happy." It is the love of the soul, which says, "I choose to share my happiness with you." This new kind of relationship is not based on the need to complete each other, but on the desire to support each other's growth. It is a partnership of two sovereigns, not of a prisoner and a guard. Projections don't disappear completely. Your partner will still activate parts of your shadow and you theirs. The difference is that you now have the tools to deal with it. Instead of blaming your partner for your reaction, you recognize that they have only activated an old wound of yours. Conflict ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a laboratory of self-knowledge. You learn to use your relationship as a conscious mirror, helping each other see your blind spots, not with criticism, but with compassion. This is the alchemical union that Jung described. Two souls helping each other in their process of individuation. And what happens to the original impossible love, to that person who was the catalyst for this whole journey? You discover the final truth. Gratitude replaces longing. You look at their memory not with the pain of loss, but with a deep and serene gratitude. You realize that they were your most important, though painful, blessing. They were the messenger your soul sent to wake you up. And by fulfilling their mission, the emotional charge disappears. The person becomes just a person, and you are left with the true prize, yourself, in your most complete and authentic form. But how does this wholeness manifest in the world? How does this new inner peace translate into an external life of meaning and fulfillment?
When you survive your first major storm, not as your old fractured self, but as your new resilient self, something fundamental changes. Confidence ceases to be a theory and becomes a certainty etched into your soul. You are no longer afraid of storms. But what comes after fear? What is the peace that resides on the other side of resilience? It is the state that depth psychology calls personal sovereignty. It is the moment when the desperate search for answers in the external world ends, because you have finally learned to read the map of your own soul. You stop looking for gurus, methods, and magical solutions, because you have become your own source of wisdom. You understand that every answer you were looking for was already inside you, waiting to be discovered beneath the ruins of your old contracts. This sovereignty manifests as a silent power. It is not the aggressive force that imposes its will on others, but the unshakable presence of someone who knows their own worth. It is the ability to maintain your calm in the midst of chaos. It is the strength to say no with gentleness, but without guilt. It is the freedom to say yes with your whole heart, without the fear of disapproval. People feel this. Your energetic field changes. You no longer emanate the frequency of need, but of fullness. And your relationship with the universe, with what some call fate, is also transformed. The feeling of struggling against the current disappears. In its place arises a state of flow, of synchronicity. The right opportunities appear. The right people cross your path. This doesn't happen because you are controlling the universe. It happens because you stopped fighting yourself, and therefore stopped fighting against the natural flow of your own life. And the question, what is my purpose,
also dissolves. Purpose ceases to be a destination to be found and becomes a state of being to be lived. Your purpose is not a job or a mission. It is the natural expression of your authentic identity. If your essence is that of a healer, your purpose is to heal, whether as a doctor, an artist, or a good listener. If your essence is that of a builder, your purpose is to build, whether it's a business, a family, or a garden. To live as the sovereign of your own soul is not a static state of perfection. It is a continuous dance between your light and your shadow, now partners, not enemies. It is the peace that comes from accepting your totality. But what is the final lesson? What is the one truth that, if understood, guarantees you will never again sign a contract that imprisons you?
To live as the sovereign of your own soul is not a static state of perfection. It is a continuous dance between your light and your shadow, now partners, not enemies. It is the peace that comes from accepting your totality. And with this peace comes the answer to the final question. What is the one truth that, if understood, guarantees you will never again be lost in the projection of another soul? The truth is this: you are already whole. The feeling that you were missing an other half, the longing that drove you on this painful search, was an illusion, an amnesia of the soul. You were never broken. You were just asleep to your own vastness. The anima or the animus are not missing pieces. They are dormant territories within your own psyche. The impossible love was the alarm clock's call, loud and annoying, but necessary, sent by your own deepest self to wake you up. The entire journey of projection, pain, and integration was not to find someone to complete you. It was to force you to complete yourself. And here lies the greatest paradox of all. Only when you no longer need a partner to feel whole do you become truly ready for a healthy and deep partnership. The universe doesn't deny you the love you desire. It is just waiting for you to become the person capable of receiving it. The love that is born from this place of wholeness is radically different. It is not the love of need, but the love of choice. It is not the fusion of two halves, but the alliance of two wholes. It is a relationship where your partner is no longer a mirror for your lost soul, but a travel companion, another sovereign walking by your side, each on their own path, but looking in the same direction. And the memory of that impossible love? It transforms. The pain disappears, the longing dissolves, and what remains is a silent and profound gratitude. You look back and honor that person not as the love you lost, but as the guide who found you. They were the messenger, the painful mission your soul needed to remember its own magnificence. The search for the perfect love is in fact the search for your own soul. And when you finally come home, when you sit on the throne of your own inner kingdom, you don't find the right person. You become the right person. And from that place of power and peace, love stops being a desperate hunt and becomes a serene dance. The journey inward is the longest and most rewarding. If this exploration of the soul resonated with you, leave a like so this message can reach more people, and subscribe to continue the conversation. And if you have stayed with us until this final point, leave a comment with the words, "Connection established." It's our sign that you are one of those who seek to understand. Thank you for your company. Until the next reflection.